This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We enthuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond. Dumela, hello, and welcome to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. To have the privilege and the honor to share with you, to bring guests of all kinds, and there are certain kind of guests who, if you like, repeat guests who've been here a few times, about whom I get very, very excited, who have, taken ownership of some of the successes that we've had, who are an integral part of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. One such guest, I've had Nancy here, the wife, and I've had Moteo here, the son. So it's a family which is very close to our hearts here at Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast, because they are national builders and they love this nation as I do and as we all do. But my request before we start is that please strike that button, the notification bell, and the subscribe button, and then the like button as well. 3 buttons. That's the only way we can stay relevant in this platform with your help. Kgengwenyane, welcome to your 4th appearance on Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Am I correct?
Fourth kapo ya botlhano.
Yeah. Welcome. We're going to cover the issue of mindset change. This is an issue about which our president spoke about. There's a famous speech that came out 2 years ago, where the president had gone to a retreat at a place called Manong in the Barolong area. After that retreat, he came up with a speech where he outlined that, for the last 30 years we're sort of going on the wrong direction. He talked of the specter of loss of self-esteem. He talked about the need to rethink and to re-energize our minds and to reposition ourselves as a nation. To me, it's one of those big speeches which are comparable to JFK's speech, which was the moonshot speech which he gave in the early 60s, in the sense that it's a speech that is intended to galvanize a nation and to cause it to change direction. So with that short introduction, what is your understanding, Wena? O tlhaloganya eng buetsa ka Setswana? O tlhaloganya eng ha go buiwa ka go iphetola go hetola mogopolo or mindset change?
Art change. Ja ka eba. Re nya mme ke a leboga re Mogobe le gore be ke le ha ke tla go ipoeletsa. Ke na le tshepa gore re tlana re itang pipimpi o tla tswa le badi ha ntse re ipoeletsana. Se boa boe. Nya mme go ntse yalo ya ka bua gore tautuna ona a bua yone polelo ya gore tota o tlhobaetswa ke seemo sa Botswana ka Batswana ba itshwarang ka teng e bidiwang yone mindset change. So ke ra gore na ke le Motswana ono ke a dumalana gore ke nako ya gore re lebelle ka re itshwarang ka teng, re lebelle ka go le hatshelang le anteng, ka gore ha rena le maikelo a matona ya ka o itse gore rena le Vision 2036, gona le di SDG tsa 2030, gona le Africa 2063. So gona le maikelo a mantsi a leng gore a kgwetsa la hatse gore ka le rena le Batswana rena le 2036 ya rona. Jaana gore re goroge ko maikelong a re go bontlentleng jona jo 2036 go botlhokwa gore batho ba le mo moeng wa tshiamo, ba le mo moeng o montle, ba na le mo moeng wa gore ba le mo ga gore la hatse gompie kwana na tumelwa me la hatse le ntse matobe ha o ka le tshwantshanya le nako tseo tso lowe ke ra gore erra tso lowe tota le ko morago ka gore ha o itse re batho ba le go nne re tsare pa dirwe digwe re batho ba le gore ne re tsamaya mo sekgweng le nako tsa pele ga re tsena mo seemong sa what ba ibitsang ba the agrarian period ha re se re agriculture, we are hunters and gatherers. Re na le seemo se le gore re tshwara botshelo jang, or how do we survive. So ha re tswa ha re tsena mo agrarian le gone le go ra le mara itse gore le hatse la rena ke le hatse la temothuo, mme gape le gore re tshwengwa ke mauba, re tshwengwa nako ya teng gape ba tshwengwa ke dintwa tsa merahe ya harologaneng. So we were in a state ba itsana ba ibitsang survival state. So your state of security and survival determines your norms, culture and values. So ke tsone tse le go tshwantse re bue ka tsone gompieko gore yaanong ha re tswa mo agrarian be re tsena mo le ga le hatsene le tlhabologa ka bonako. Yaanong morago ga boipuso be re bona ditemane be re simolla yaanong re bona rona ba le gore ke ra disa yaanong gompieko re na mo ditoropong gore re jwa di prawns re ha se go no akadi go no wine. So go mo ke diphetogo tse le gore re tshwantse gore re nna hatse re seka gore di raeng mo mothong. Yaanong ka bokutshwane la hatse la Botswana le mo diphetogong tse le go nna ke dumela gore ke ne ke ipotsa gore ba kae our social scientists, ba kae our political scientists, ba kae our biologists, ba kae our anthropologists, batho ba le gore ba tsama ba kanoka gore la hatse le evolve yang from a culture and a value system perspective. Ka gore ha o sa iri jalo o tla na di emo tsa gompieko tsela gore gompieko ya ka tautona bua gore re na le tsela gore gompieko yana seemo sa borukhutlho go godimo, seemo sa tlhaloganyo tsa batho mental illness di go godimo, batho ba ipola dikoloto ne re bua kgantele ka ha le ko sekolong go dikoleng bana ga ba itshware sentle ebile ga ba pase. So dio tseo di dintsi bila ke batlo re go gatelle mo go tsone re amogelela gore go na le dio tse le gore mo go rona re le Batswana a di tsamae sentle. Mme re tshwantse gore re di seka gore me seemo sa motho in terms of values and culture, what is that we need to transform, what is that we need to change to go to a space e tla leng go tla irang gore re kgona gore kgweletse le hatse le ko pele re kgona go achieve 2036 le tse dingwe tse le gore ra di eletsa.
Ke la bogala ka ha e tlhalosang ka teng, but sengwe sa dio tse tautona di umakile mo puong ya gagwe ke gore re go itebela go tlase go oketsegile a bua gore self esteem ya Motswana ile go tlase, go tlhokagala gore le rona ka ha re itebang ka teng re itsheka re ithatlosa. Jaanong ne ke batla go ibotsa gabedi potso e gore a gone ne go ntse jalo ka ha o lemogileng ka teng le gore mo ngwageng tse pedi ampo ngwaga le sephatlo ntse go buiwa molaetsa a sengwenyana sa rothegela a nkonyana isimotse go tswa diminanyana ka ho bona ka teng.
Metla ke go iso ko morago pele ka gore ha o ka lemoga ha ke ntse ke tla se boane mo go ena ne ke bua ka dipolelo di le malonyana ya ntlha ne re bua ka boitumelo jwa batho in terms of happiness of our people or well-being of our people. Ke di buana ka di botlhokwa mo se re se buang gompieko gore keng Batswana ba sa itumela. Ke buana ka gore le one ena le sika le gore keng re na le gone gore ga re ithati le one di kgantsa self esteem kana motho o tsena self esteem a ka itumela ha ka bereka sentle ha ka na entrepreneur ha ka tsamaisa dio ka ha tshwanelo wa bona. So self esteem ke ngwadi o tse leng gore di affecta gore batho ba itubetse go le kae gape le go itsela go itsela go tlase gape se sengwe se ne re la ha re se bua thata se le gore ke ngwe ya dipolo tse go ke a di rata ke tsa entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are people that transform the world. Like there are only about 5% of the population that are entrepreneurs like you and I. So they are very special animals. But they thrive in a society it's a sentle. But by one of those entrepreneurs gore ba khona gore ba tshela ntse ba go lesega mo moe ba go lesega se batlang go se dira yana ha gona le dio tsele gore di ke di sana ha ba ka ke ba khona gore ba goroge ko di ba khopantse di ba khopetsang ha ba ke ba goroga ko the 10x mindset, the exponential stuff se tla bua ka sona. So ke ra gore ke ntse ke a isika gore bana gore there is happiness, there is entrepreneurship, ne re bua gape ko bohelong ha nna lwana re kgaogana ne re bua ka pharologanya ya ba ba humile le ba sa human in terms of inequality. Wa bona gore di a sika ka mantswe a mangwe ha le gore mo la hatsing ya ka ke ne go bola mo go tswana di tlhabologo tsa teng di diragela ka sepiti sa ga monyanka le wairo a se sepiti sa ga monyanka le wairo
ke simple
go borolo
te ba le kolobatse me ba gore ga go kanyampo gongwe le gongwe la go
mo so sepiti seo se khopa khopeditse Batswana ka hana ba tlhabologa ka teng ka mantswe a mangwe na le batho ba ile go mpio gore mo Botswana ba sampe ba le mo segologolo se le gore ba sampe ba rua dikgomo sampe ba lema ba mo seemong seo se le gore ya ka ne ke bua kgante ya bogologolo they are still in their survival mode ba bona batho ba ile gore bone bao ke batho ba ile gore they are very traditional in their values ba bona gona la ba ntsenyalo ba ile gore ibile dio tsa segompieko tsa gore self expression tsa gore a re amogela batho ba ba nang le ba ratanang ka bong a ra amogela gore a batho ba tlole leso mo go bone they are very traditional ba bona so Botswana is in transition and there are a good part of the population that's still very traditional some of them are gape tsamalana le go dumela mo modimong batho ba teng ba dumela gore ha le gore dio di thata ba dumela gore nyame botshelo bo teng in the afterlife so ke gona ba tsang mono wa gore ba ikgomotsa ka one those are the people jaanong gape re na le ba tshwana le wena jana ba le gore bone they are not in the survival mode. They've actually moved on. They've grown economically and physically. You are not worried about your roof. You are not worried about luba. That's why bontsi jwa lona ibile le simolla le ho ralla modimo wa Israel. Ka gore le ipola gore ba pa ya teng sa toro ba ka ka bonako. Me bontsi jwa batho la ka lebella mahatsha a leng gore jaanong ba tshela sentle bile ba itumetse ka mahatsa a Scandinavia yana bontsi jwa batho bao ga ba tsena kereke ba bona they have a very high rate of irreligious people ha ba bua la ka ha sena Sweden yana di kereke tsa bona ne nna di museum e nna di hall ba di change ka gore batho ba ya kerekeng ka ntata gore they have moved away from the survivalist mode no mo bone gore mento ba tlhokomela ka tsela tsotlhe so yaanong the big things for them is self expression is democracy is realizing the personal individual aspirations yaanong batho ba teng mo Botswana ba le kidinyana ka ntata gore these are your middle class and your upper middle class so yaanong ha re bua ka inequality pharologanya nna le wena le ba ba go morago e kana jaaka ba e bala ka lano la Gini index e tona ya ka o itse gore Gini index mo Botswana ke nngwe le gore e di heta tsotlhe mo lehatsheng yaanong pharologanya eo e tsenya ketsetsego e le gore e tsenya moa wa ba go morago ba go le bone yaanong ba ipelela seemo a go bona gore ke ya go self esteem ke ya go happiness and well being gore batho ha o sena moa o wa gore tota o mang a ke siame a ke gollesegile a bana ba tla bona dijo ka moso a bana ba go pasa ka ne re bua gore bana go dikgaolong ga ba pase so se tshwenya batho ba go dikgaolong yaanong se mo sone se ke se dirang gore kgantelebele gore yaanong ya ka bua batho ga ba itshepi batho ga ba that level of self esteem is not there in our nation yaanong potsa gore yaanong re tsamaya ka ha sa le Dautuna bua kganyeo maloba jale
it's about 18 months
erra yaanong tota hela ke amogele gore ga ke itse nna la gore mente ko teng ya teng go lentse jang ke ntse go utla tsone dipolelo hela tsa television dipolelo hela di bua mo radiong jalo ya ka me tsa mo dikhotle yaanong nna ya ka moela di otlhoko ya ka o itse gore rona re batho ba ile gore re ya la otlhoko we observe and we recommend and we have a very scientific approach to things so we need to look at for instance policy levers what we need to do in terms of transforming our people and some of those things that addressing the issue of inequality and last time ha re bua ne ke bua gore re ka ira jang gore re kgone go tswala ha re some perennial inequality mo Botswana tsala ya me tse dingwe tse ke di tsa badimo ha ka goroga ene ke bua jana ka gore le mahatse a ile gore ana le kganyone ya ka South Africa wa itse South Africa o tobekane go thata kwa Africa bora because the level of inequality is very high la ha se le tshwana le Brazil the level of inequality is high the crime rates are high education is a problem self esteem is a problem so ya ke like nna ke batla Dautuna le ba le kokolo la gagwe ba simolle ba e komoding wa gore keng se re ka se lebellang from a policy perspective ba bona ha o sampona le bana ba ile gore ba palelwa mo dikolong at 15 ba tsena mo mebileng ba sena se ba se dirang ile gore tshepo ya bona mo botshelong ke gore ba ye go disa bo ba nna le bana gape ga o ka lemoga batho ba leng gore ba le mo survival state ba na le gore ba nne le bana ba bantsi ka gore that's part of survival wa bona nna le wena tle ba nna le bana ba 2 ba 3 batho ba leng gore ba kwa bona ba nna le bana ba bantsi and it's simply because they want protection also they don't have confidence gore bana ba botlhe ba tla survive ka nta a seemo se ba leng mo go sone jaana ke raya gore ra khanye e na mo gonna e buima go na le ka ha e tshwarwang ka teng dikgang tse ntse ke di bua tsa national happiness tsa inequality tsa gore can we develop an entrepreneurial business culture that can take on the world and leverage all these beautiful things that are happening in the world ke ne ke bua nako e le gore kana la hatse gompiekwana there are so many technologies that Botswana can leverage and speed up our development process ke ne ke ra ba ngwana why don't we have an AI council in Botswana mahatso o tlhela le gore a lebetse ko pele very progressive bo Dubai bo ma hela go khanya AI they establish an AI council sa re bua ka 4IR council mo Botswana a center of excellence ha itira gala so why bona
mo go nda Botswana innovation
ya ra ga itse ke bone a o swe bona ba bile o belela yana gore ga ite that's why ke re tautuna la ba le kokola gagwe rona ba le gore re eme go thoko mere ha dikakanyo ke gona gore ha re sa address do tsele gore di a tshwarega addressing inequality addressing entrepreneurial landscape addressing these social ills wa bona ha ke wa sky ka sengwe se le gore ne se ntlobaetse ke bona go la ha tsela rona tota batho ga ba tsoga ke mo group ntse di bidang WhatsApp tse ya barua kgomo e tona hela ile gore barua kgomo ka go harologanya malatsi ba mo ka moteng ba ba ntse mo go maso jaanong bo go nna le clipinyane ya video ene e supa bangwe ba tshwerwe ke barua kgomo bana ba utswa dikgomo bo ba tshwara bo ba shamboka shamboka ha sona ba shamboka ba madima dikana bo ba tsana mayonnaise ya dikgomo ba nela gore ba eje
e sa butso
o itse gore ke a ke renya ba ga itshulano go teng se ga se sone ke sone se supang gore la hatse batho ba ile ko class ya no gone mo groupong e kwa la ke e betso ga se a go a siama ra tshwanna gore e be le gore go ntse a le beretsela gore ke so se tshiamo ga gore gore ha o kelemile ka po o tswetso santse gore anong we ko seemong se o se le gore sela bophologolong wa bona nya be ba boa la bantha ba nya wena Kgengwenyane kana ga utswe le dikgomo ba bona so ke ra gore mo wa teng ke be ke
ba go tsholola
no ke bona gore ai ebile be ke di dimana ke bona gore ha ya la ke tloga yana ya go se le bate mo go nna ya ka ke bua as an observer of society this is a signal of what do tsotletse how bona ka the rate of GBV the rate of rape in Botswana one of the highest in the world we are building huge mental hospitals we are building huge hospitals because health is also going down so all those are signals of an unwell society that is why now the mindset change program I support 110% how we're doing it that's where we need to scrutinize
mo groupung ya ka WhatsApp le go dune le tseneletse mo batho me a be ba khona go lutlwana ntse la timela re ko tenga ba tsoga re wa le go diwa ba tsenya tlhogo ke ha amtaka I think go hale nele sharp instrument ga ke go nele ke ha a tsomadi ya ba a wala gone ho mongwa ba re wa khela gore ke ana sa mo mobilize ke ana sa mo bohe ka dinetla ke ha bontsi jwa batho ba renya that's he got what he deserved selalome go tla think self defense you use whatever means are necessary to protect your family go sna mogopolo wa proportionality so ke hotella mo go se se buang but a re buele go go ya mindset change kana puo e bua ganke a re change me a gona le maitlamo se makgwa ba reng ke di goal specific goals specific objectives tse go teng re change re tswaha re ya these are our exact parameters if you like metrics tse rang go measure ka tsone gore re changeile if so go tlhokagala eng gore go ne le specific metrics tse di re guide
ya ka ne re bua rona batho ba dipatlisiso le go lebella gore la ha tsela kae ke ne ka seka mo dingwageng tsa maloba gore tota ke ha kae ha ile gore ba ira dipalobalo tsa phetogo ya ka batho ba tshelang ka teng ka lehatse ka bophara dio tseo di teng tse le gore ba seka gone diphetogo tsa batho gore ba itshwara yang, what motivates people, how does culture evolve over time, because the cultures have evolved. Some of them they've been influenced by specific interventions. Sweden. Prime Minister of Sweden in 1936 Sweden will be a classless society. That was the vision, a 10-year vision. Ya tautona wa teng mme a ba simolla yana ba build that strong welfare state ile gore o tlo go tlhokomela batho ba gagwe, free education, free health, obviously na bana le sego ya gore bana le khumo ya diweleng jalo le technology ene bana le yone mme go bohelong gompieko Sweden ke mongwe wa mahatse a itumetseng a batho ba tswelang lethe mo lehatseng ka bophara ka gore tautona ona tsenya lebogo go re go supetsa gore you can intervene and actually measure how you are growing and improving over time. So this ibidwa the value survey, international value survey. It teng le mo di website ting e leng gore it's measured globally, it's been conducted for the last 50 years, monitoring gore di values di change ya mahatseng a harologaneng. But it's gape go botlhokwa gore re lemoge gore that's why I get it. Tota ha re sa tsene go teng ya Botswana ha rena go itshwara so go bua hela re bua re bitsa deep dive in consulting. If you don't deep dive go ta go tswa ha kae ha ke go ha sky mahatsi ha re tsa yone ya the value survey ba lebela gore mahatsi a tlhabologa ya ba lebetse gore mahatsi a tswa mo your traditional values wa itse lona ke lebe re dumela mo ngaka tsa Setswana, re dumela mo go re dumela mo goreng mo badimong, re dumela gape mo goreng re khona go rapela pula e be e tla e sa tle ka nthata tsone dio tsa mauba jalo so ha bana ba lebela le mahatsa a segologolo gore na tswa yang kone ba tswa teng at basic agrarian level to modernization levels bo ba bona gore lehatse le tshwana a ke haskai lehatse le tshwana le bo Northern Europe e ne le mahatse ana le Protestant South of Europe ana le Catholic jaanong the way a tlhaboleng ka tena a tlhabologa ka go harologanya for instance mahatse a Catholic bone kra ba Protestant bone ha ba tlhabologa bana ba khona gore ba tse tshwetso ya gore ba hokotse bana ba tsholang ka ba tlhaola ka bonako gona le Catholic ene ya ka o itse gore le khanya condom ka makoteliki khanya edingala that's a culture, that's a value bona ba tshola bana ba bantsi bile ba sa dumele mo gore go diriswe dikausu ka family planning wa bona so go mo gwa ka ha ditlhabologo di tsamang ka teng based on your heritage culture so le rona tshwantse re boela gore rona re le Batswana ka gore ka re go mo ga go tlhabologa ka bonako ga ra go seka gore me re tswa kae ne re le batho ba ntseng jang ka mantswe a mangwe re sampere le mo dikgaolong re di sa dikgomo re dumela mo badimong re itse gore ha go le maswa ga kenya Setswana wa ya padi gwere o irang ka bonako kana this move from 1960 1950 be sampe dira like the 80s o bele gore ka bonako rena le gaborone ena le dikago tse dintsenya la maphatsi it's historically it's a very very quick move and for me this is the chaos that we are dealing with where ibile re salatsana ne morago ba masambala ko morago ba go ba ko pele for instance ba bangwe ba montsi ba le gore ba tlhabologile ka benana ga bana mathata le gore gays and lesbians ga bana mathata le gore mosadi a tse seemo sa go mo lapeng ibile a promote ha go bua le mona mogolo yo go khomoka sitwa ena re nya monna mme o tshwantse ra nne ha ibile ra re gona batho ba bona le monna o bona le monna o bona gore o make wa bona ke ra ya so yo tseo di tsenya tlhakatlhakano mo monnetlong wa bona ka tshwantse gore re go lebella gore yana ba o bone re ba tshwara yang how do you introduce this, how do you convince them, and the biggest thing is as these guys by the value survey have observed once the economy grows, once your physical security and economic security is reduced, then we simolla o wara ka dio tse dingwe tsone tsa democracy, tsa freedom, tsa gays and lesbians ba bangwe ba akake wa bona so that's the size again ya ka bua gore are measure la re reng kere nna ke batla gore re go measure ibile in this international value survey we are not part of it ke lebeletse ke tlhetse gore Botswana ga yo mo teng no ma tsa Africa ka bontsi ga yo mo teng ke ra ke dio tsele gore ne le ga re hetsa bo mbotsa gore me re ka tsa tsela FB ke no sa san thaela e tshwantse gore statistics Botswana it's an thing. Our social scientists, but it's an thing. But similar level, we get a very good picture of where are we right now as a people, and how are we able to manipulate society?
So are we like a doctor who administers medicine without a proper diagnosis?
How to get it that to be fair to government and the proponents of art changing. Hakitse mateng a teng. Ke ra re gongwe ba go ira ditshekatsheko hakitse mme sa mehela ke gore ha o se re ditshekatsheko ha re sa tsene go tenyana teng ra seka gore me go ga senyega ha kae mme re tsentse a deep dive into Botswana society go khoma ka sitwa go mohembo go tswa pong go ra tholo kae le kae ra bona gore me batho ba tshela e be re bona me anong the principles of transitioning values that we desire, that will make us a happier nation. A happier nation performs.
Can it not be argued, it's like a house on fire. You first have to pour water or take whatever steps without telling or what before you investigate the cause of the fire or to determine how we got where we are. The thing is that there's a crisis now that requires urgent intervention. Isn't that the attitude of government in some ways?
Ne ra harlola ba simanyana ba simanyana bana ba lwa go temo di monthuse no ro ka di fe o ngola bona ra o ina la face ngwe be pesa be shi ta ka bua ro khona go wina me khantelo mo kana re furufura a tsene ja ba go itaka wa no so ke ra gore go la gore ira mo di monthuse me ha ke dumela mo di monthuse ka gore we live in a rational world, we live in a scientific world, we live in a world where there are proper analytical tools that can tell us where we are so that we have a very informed and educational way of going forward. So ke ra that's why I kere ye wanga se dumane lo ne gore re dire unless le gore re tsala gore di tlhaganetse go gongwe, which means it will now be where le gore ano re ya it's a shortcut. It's a shortcut because the transitions of values take time. I mean,
yes.
It's almost intergenerational. Bana ba rona re harologana le bone in terms of values. Go be go ana mosima yona mo khona go no buisa le nna ya la ile gore nya go re mosima yona o rate you know ke na go ra go re ke motone me re tso rona le ra ka 1982 bu ala pesa ka tlapa o itso re nya you belong where you belong. Those are not so long so how to get those are intergenerational values tell gore the tshwantse we have to define what values we desire as a nation. So none gets said so this national value system will come first with the diagnosis. Where are we? What have we inherited as a people? Because ya ka batswana gape se ka re hela ka di go na di labe mo di go na tsone di ntletsele gore ya ka ne ke bola re bua ka happiness. There are things that are very good within our culture that we like to keep. For instance, the social support, the warmth of our people, those are the things that we want to keep. But if we don't proactively manage them and steer them, they will be lost. Why? Because some of our messaging tools like radio, like BTV, you know, it's very distressing because a lot of our modern people don't even watch our own stations because our own stations ga di khasi dilo tsa rona tsa Botswana in a funky way that appeals to a modern person. I mean, bana kele ba ngam ha ba tsole BTV ke because matter how can you watch such a boring, I mean, ha ke bona go le hatsi la rona ga le hetoge ke tla be ke re di khantsere lo Botswana basambe batsamka pina ya ding ding ding. Oh my God, this is a good example of a society that's not transitioning. Why is it 1979 I got about Moko. We are not cognizant of the transition. That song is totally out of context where we are. That's why it la rezo ke bo rarona ba ke re bone nostalgia, it keeps tradition or bana ke bua ka traditional people, survivalist type environment mo go bone sampe go le botlhokwa. But the vast majority of our modern kids you know ba le gore ba you know ma 2000 le ma 1980 they've got totally different values. And then what happens, this is very important, what happens that now they don't watch your BTV, they don't read the daily news, so they actually don't even know what's happening in their own country because Mogobe DSTV. That's why we don't even support our own teams because Mogorona Arsenal mo go rona gatemang
Menu.
makgare ba tlholang a tsena mo programming ya DSTV a tlholang a ira di hits dintsi gore they watch all these foreign western programs that influence sometimes
Ura
in
the
a not so
Kardashians.
the Kardashians
The Kardashians,
re ke bua bana makgare ba now the Kardashians, so that now preoccupies our kids, the greedy world of the movies, the sex exposure, the pornography, so those now they influence our kids because our BTV, our radios are totally out of touch. So for me, we
And they
need to,
don't
and
seem
even
to-
the content, even
They
the
don't seem to be making an effort to bring in
that.
current content.
One of my favorite programs that was on ka bona ke bana itse dintshitswe go na le those dipolelo tse ne di tswa mo BTV bogologolo tse ne di tswa ga ke tsone go na le nngwe ya ne le
Ba
kwa tswa
interview
go
bagolo.
nyanyane tseo di siame le tsone tseo but go na le di bidiwang sort of the series
Yeah,
tsa
yeah.
Setswana tse ne di ntshiwa many years ago ya be di nyalela
Eh.
ka re ke di rata mo go maswa ne re di lebela engwe bi ene na le ne di ka dio tsa bo bonong
Yeah,
tsa
yeah,
you know tsa dingaka tsa Setswana
Yes, I remember,
I mean for me it was juicy. Yes, the quality could improve, but for me that now connects our people with our culture. But rather, because that, so we even make our own people unfashionable. So when you make your own self unfashionable, it means that it will affect your self-esteem. It's a cycle. It's a cycle thing. Even your language. I mean, I always tell my kids, you have to first know who you are. When I was Socrates, first know thyself.
This
Know
one's
yourself.
like
So to know
yeah.
yourself, I say kids, and not proud of yourself. You start with the language, you start with your culture.
This
The
one's
world
like-
wants to know your culture.
This one se ke batlang re bua ka Setswana nna le wena.
Nyaro ho.
Gore re medle ho ma ke bua ka ye a re change nna ne ke tsena ko lesedi ha ke tsena ko lesedi they used to have a gentleman called Radius Clark would come over actually nna mo di classroom tsa rona ko lesedi then ke bua ka 76 and sekele wait was I even a teenager? Yes, like early teens. And Radius Clark o nana le yone pineo a re changing. This was late, was 79, or 80, somewhere there. Are changing. That's just like okay, wa yopela le ko stadium wa yopela. Go tsa pina ye rona gompieno re be re dira our rallying cry gompieno. A ke mogopolo o montle, ha ile re ke mogopolo o montle. Re dirise jang mogopolo wa are changing le the Radius concept. Mo e leng gore a ke rona tswela bua gore batho le bang go godimo le bone lo tla bona gore kgwebo itsamaisa se swele megopolo eo ke batla o bua sengwe ka gone mo re o le mantsitsudi wa diutse
la ke se mantsitsudi wa dikatara go dirisa Radius Tlhako ke mogopolo o montle so sa ntlha o seno sa se leng gore re na le sone mo Botswana bua ka self-esteem ke motho ke dumela gore sa ntlha le motho o ikize gore o mang go na le bašwa ba bantsi gompieno ba sa itse le Radius Tlhako gore ke na le tsaeng le dipina tsa go tse dintle tse ga ba di itse ke gone mo ke buang gore tshwanetse gore sa ntlha re itemoge gore re mang. That's where you get pride. I've traveled the world when I Mogobe. People in Canada, in the UK, they're not interested in you trying to be like them. They're not. I mean, I give people an example. I get a change from Michael to Oabona. It's when some very young star first year you can tell, why are you called Michael? What's up, Africa? And it was a very honest question. It doesn't matter what it is because we're Christians, we're what? I mean, part of this thing. I heard the missionary, the transforming to a Christian faith does not necessarily that you need to change who you are and how you identify. That instills confusion, which affects self-esteem. And I know the social scientists and the psychologists can debate this matter. But Radius Tlhako, ya ka Motswana, with the folklores, with the beautiful songs. I think adirisa segaba a opela jalo segankuri ke seo tse le gore di mosola gore re itse. It is our national heritage, so we are using our national heritage to leverage a program le gore batla gore re tsamaise mo Batswaneng. So eo ke ra gore e siame ha o tlekere mathata a me hela ke gore a mme gone re khona go lebella gore Ratias Taku o na emetseng Ratias Taku ha bua mahoko o na tswa kae o na batla re hetoga re a kae and then apply science gore what does that mean iseng hela gore re are changing and actually not understand the context ya gore are changing na tswa kae. So ke ra gore ke dumala 110% gore ka dirisa Ratias Taku jaaka a musician wa Botswana ke one ya self esteem kana gore dirisa motho a rona. I mean go ask guys se gape gore Batswana di otse gape ba di nyoretswe go re hela seemo sa rona as a system as a Botswana Pty Limited. I don't think we do it very well. Ke ne ke ile ko Mokwena go dithuba ruba ngwaga ene ke re o itse re ke Batswana ba kwena ba tima monate be ke a go neko hey Batswana ke ha batsetse ke be ke botsa gore o itse re Batswana ba nyoretswe segabone now for me, if it was organized at national nya ke ba kwena ya no ba supa go boka ba supa dipina tsa bone ba supa party ya ba ratang thata bo ba tsa gape le dingwao tsa meraheme go le one tla go isupa gone ko but e reteletse e remeletse mo Setswaneng mo mineng wa Setswana jalo go la ko ra ko ke ala gore nya di godi ho go nwa mokuru nya go monate ke a ba ke ra re ke so se le gore mo go nna ke eletsa gore bana ba ye go re celebrate ngwa ya rona because that is our national heritage that we can, it's unique. We can package it and take it to the world. Ya ga ke bua gore batho ga ba batle bo Michael le gore o choma se khwa thata. I mean they love it when you are speaking your own language. Ba rata. You know the foreigners they love it. And actually ba re tshega when you spend most of your time trying to emulate them. Because ba rata ba reeletsa. So they try to be like us. So that again ira gore ba re nyanyahatsa. So santla ba re nyanyahatsa sa bobedi le rona gape yanong go supa gore we have a really an insecure sense of who we are. So Motswana o tshwantse re ipa o tlekere the are changing that ke dumalana le one tlhoto but khanya mela gore a merira ka Matshwaneng.
Yanong ke bona tautona mo etela dipelo a rona tsa mamo di khotleng mo a le ka go rekisa one molaetse ga ke tsora ke lo iphanako wa reetsa gore tota e rekisiwa jang a re changing ye mindset change maabane ne ke le ko Avani ne rena le re sebetela rutla bua with great passion but so sene ka se rata thata se umaga ke hare Batswana a re lesego ja thobo le peo lesego ja thobo le peo a le ka go gatela gore botlhoko ja gore re nne le savings and investments. Ke bua gone ho gore a ka ha o setse morae tsa o rekisiwa ka teng a ga se maiteko mangwe a o ka reng ngwana o le moitsana pe wa re nyame sengonyana ke seo
ka ke tse yone ya arskara ya thobo le peo. Classical beautiful example and beautiful laid out I'm sure by Sebetla as I know him or he will do that. High long gore kar let's dip deeper. Ke gore la ha re ka bua ra hela lentswe ka gore Batswana ba ska ba ja thobo le peo and we don't deal with the pressures of modern day society. Pressures kira status. I mean you go around, you know, everybody wants to be seen to be driving a good car,
expensive phones,
exactly, expensive phone, nice car. Even if you're, so those pressures, unless you address those pressures like other countries have, in terms of status symbol, that's killing a lot of people, that putting people in debt. Just saying it, Mogobe will not address it, because this is go block 5. This is go Tlokweng. This is what's happening every day, where my neighbor seems to have something better than me. And that is the values these are the wrong values that are well entrenched in our society that I said we need to manage. Otherwise, we are just dealing with the symptoms. You won't. The people will not change because the status, the individualism culture that we have today, as dictated by the modernizational theory, so I bet. I mean, I love Recimetel. I love the pitch. Yeah, the president laying around this whole. I think in terms of awareness, I mean, it's 99% awareness. But whether it will be effective, I think it stands to be seen. Simply because I don't think that is just the typical example. We are driven now by a culture very much of greed. I mean, I see it. I mean, entrepreneurs, people will kill just for additional money. I mean, we see that every day. And these are the things that from our generation and the kids coming, we try to instill that's not how you should live. And that's what affects happiness. That's what affects why you have crime. Because people have crime because they want to look like you.
Yeah.
If you don't address that, if we have so many poor people and so many rich people, the poor people are going to get angry. But that's not going to solve the problem. You got to address the level of poverty. China, over a period of 30 years, took 800 million people out of poverty. We have between 120 and 200,000 people in poverty.
Yeah,
you and I'm challenging your intellect and also of our collective to solve 120,000 people in poverty in terms of solution. I'm not saying there is a trick out there, but it's a challenge because I believe that having these poverty levels and having extremely rich people is part of our problem that's causing a lot of the social ills that we have today.
Well, umakile China na rekile teng. I think now quite to celebrate a decade or so. Zimping can channel Raki Willie Nalosen. Ale moitele di pele. Me never bua tataka capitalism with Chinese characteristics. Moelon hore batseris komanisi basukopanya le capitalism. But there are characteristics in China. And they came up with a formula where they more than quadrupled. I think they didn't even quadruple. They 100x the number of millionaires and billionaires within a space of 20 years. So put a guy is there a model that we can adopt for our much smaller population here? Similar to
benchmark. There are models out there you can study, but we need to develop our own unique model. That is why Kanye Trangates Rambotswana Kore Hansin re senyana ko entsi ka go leka go kopela batho ba go ba direla re sa itseketseke and come up with home cooked solutions. Home cooked solutions are very sustainable because they were designed for you, so they are fitting. They are fitting. So that's very important. So both China the Gibuaka cultural heritage it helps you with the trajectory of progress. China in the 1960s, over 40 million Chinese people died of hunger. So there was a very strong survivalist mode in terms of where they were in their values map. So a lot of people died. So and then obviously we're talking about a Confucian culture. Again, you got to look at what Pachuakai. That's why the development of Japan is different from the development of Russia, development of UK and USA, because Japan comes from a Confucian culture. That's why in terms of their values, Japan developed very fast, became a very modern top economy at some stage, second to the States, but the rate of advancement of women was not equivalent to what happens in the States and the other countries, simply because of their value system. So I'm just giving you an example. Our countries have their own unique based on their nation. I mean, I can't wait to see a study that says, who were we in the 1800s? Who were we in the 20th century? Who are we now? And then now, based on this journey, how best can we transist? That's what we need to do. Otherwise, we will talk and we will not.
Surely our academicians and our scholars at the universities, and we have so many universities, some of them are working on this. Is that not the case?
Because I'm very keen. I'm very. The last time a social scientist. Inequality, social ills, because I'm not a social scientist. I'm just an observer of society from economy, social, and from a psychosocial aspect as well. Because that's my concern. Because I want a happy society. I have a vested interest in a happier society, because a happier society performs. Performs educationally, technology, entrepreneurs.
So actually, you are sending a clarion call, isn't it? You're challenging them.
Yeah, no, stand up. Get out of the university classrooms. That is why I know Professor Norris is trying to make UB a very research-based instead of a teaching us. We need to put data on the table. Statistics Botswana. What are they? Where are the statistics about values? Right, I mean, we hear about economy, trade, all that. Every bias is towards numbers. It's towards the money side. We've got to start addressing the social, psychological side before it becomes a time bomb.
Puo ya rona re tlotlo ke le gana le maiteko mangwe gore puo motho a rutwe ka puo ya molemo lebeleng go simologa go bonyenyaneng
right
ibile nkile ka utlwa go te ka re gormente wa mogetse mogopolo ibile wa o diragatsa o ka kgala o reng ho
ke ne ke tsholeditse mo gatlantate ne ke itumetse mo go maswe ka gore tota ha ke itse ke eng re ira dilo tse dingwe tse le gore re itse gore di sokodisa kgolo ya lehatshe ke ra gore ne ke badile gantsintsi I mean ha o lebella maduo a dikwele mo Botswana o botsa o tsa kgaolo tshwana le ya Mogobe o botsa kgaolo tshwana le ya gantsi kgalagadi. This is where we have the worst performance of schools. This is where we throw a lot of kids in the abyss ba sana future. And part of it was because bana ba palelwa ka gore bana ba rutwa ka teme ya seeng ke tsenya seeng ha ke tsenya Setswana mo teng ka bona ba rutwa ka teme e leng gore ga ba itse ga ba gola ka yena ga se ya mme dipatliso tsotlhe tsa lahatse ka bophara di supile gore ngwana gore a kgona gore a tswelle mo botshelong o tshwantse gore mo thutong o mo simolle ka teme ya tlhaloganyang. Ke ke hakologa ke boela ke ra gore ke gopola di minister tsa education from the 90s ba ntse ba defenda khanya ba no we're not ready ha gona madi ha gona eng. Very sad. I was very sad again because of the implications on the social dynamics of Botswana and the development process. I mean, the kids that fail, this country needs talent. We are short of PhDs. We are short of technologies. We are short of AI entrepreneurs. And kids are sitting there. So for me, that development, late as it comes, I celebrate it. Self-esteem. Self-esteem and pride. I mean, I don't know why I have this diverse and very accommodating, very tolerant of other people. I mean, for me, for me, it's beautiful. Oh man, it's beautiful. I mean, we usually can go Kalaka, give a Hawadia, Kagiloko Kalaka, Kotena, Kobo da Kwikwa, Kobo Tombo, La Remo Pitron. I can't make a show like a dim. Get Lebeke back and Baba Zala, Aquilin to Helen Hella, and I enjoy the whole peanuts at Dandy, Wakaskalaga. Me, it's a beauty. It's the tapestry of our culture. That's right. So I don't know why we are denying ourselves this thing. Even more the Kanying. I mean, Sarah had put and then the Kalanka chiefs, our Shambhala. I mean, why are we translating. Why don't we let people speak their mother tongue and then someone else can translate? I mean, we know that now Ikalanga is a written language, is what, and it's an object. It's a duty of a government.
There's even rap songs.
Exactly, it's a duty of government to ensure those platforms exist. We need to hear news. Kaskalaka, because there are a lot of Kalanga people in Botswana. Another example which people might find a bit extreme, we have a very huge population of Zimbabweans in Botswana. Again, it's my diverse, which people might differ, really being accommodative and liking. So why don't we have a news section in our news that speak to them and actually just to acknowledge them? Let me give you an example of happy countries. Finland is one of the happiest countries in the world. And one of the markers of happiness is how the Finns endorse diversity in their country. They love foreigners. That's right. Countries that are diverse, I go to Canada a lot. In Canada, I mean, there's a whole tapestry of Bangladesh. I mean, Hanzika Canada, and I've seen more people. I mean, I've met really very unique people from across, and they live in peace together in harmony, and the systems support that diversity. And interestingly, now back to entrepreneurs, a world where you got diversity entrepreneurship thrives. Just like America is the most dominant economy at the back of immigrants because it's diverse. So more can be done in terms of accommodating different languages. I would like to see more of it in radios. I would like to see these are the practical things that are changing.
Because
these are the issues.
Re mise go dira eng re simolla go dira eng gona le dilo re ka di balollang gore a re emise se a re simolle se ne ke re ka go botsa lo we amile halela hale ba ke batla we phutha yana khanya teng o remella mo go yona
a re simolla ka ene re tswa mo go ena gore sa ntlhaela re tshwanetse re emise go tlhokomologa the unique cultures in our society. Re tshwanetse re emise gore basara ba ba ko dikar e be le gore ngwaga mongwe ba palola ke go ira the festival in August because they depend on NGOs, because it is our interest as a country to see their culture being demonstrated and being showed to the world. Sometimes they don't do it because they rely on donors from outside the country to contribute. So we have to start because that builds the self-esteem, that builds pride. Letting a radio station Botswana ka BTV have a section o go di kgang ka Skalaka kapo ka Sesarwa kapo ka Sobia. It's a pride thing. It also educates the dominant tribes to be accommodative of diversity. We've moved from the survivalist. The survivalist mode, by the way, they are not very friendly to neighbors because they were seen as a threat.
Because we are inward.
Yes, we are inward looking. But now, with now not worried about the physical and economic securities, we now go into the self-expression mode where now we accommodate other society. This is where your Scandinavian countries are in that space, and it creates a happier society. So I re-accommodate the homo. When you go to ban Kenya, jaka mogwebi, jaka a businessman. Even re bua mongwenya di group tsa agriculture recently, and unfortunately, Mompoloki ba rata because it serves them. We've got to reduce the dependency syndrome. We've got to reduce the level at which we throw freebies to the country because people are sitting back and waiting for people to. Oh man, I mean, we've lived through a culture of di papata di hiwa, di kobo di hiwa, di trekere di hiwa. Now we are giving bulls and what free of charge. You know, freebies only work to a certain. If you want an entrepreneurial society, you try to monitor the level at which you do those philanthropic type interventions. So for me, it has gone too far. With freebies. Entitlement mentality. Entitlement mentality is one of the most dangerous value systems that you can infuse into a society because people wait for you. You know, but they wait. They don't. Sometimes they don't do anything. They just wait for what I mean. Got a friend. wa leburu tla batla ka kwano ha tla kwano tla batla hey wa itse Santa Barbara is a great country but le tla ba duma gore you're going too far where people get tractors you plant for them and then you give them free seeds and then now the same people about to somebody and down tawolele I mean where does no down tobe I mean I've got a manager who came from Zimbabwe now in one of our farms and he's shocked he loves planting and crops so he sees go lengwa go lengwa bo go jalwa di ebe go di ano le gore nya dijalo di a gola aba jaanong ke ba sa thagole re Kgengwenyane no I cannot that affects yield you can't have mehero when he drives around wow people not de-weeding but so the entitlement culture and it's something that sounds really like I did now because unfortunately political life is in 5 years and because it's a 5-year cycle people love people that give them freebies so I'm feeling for the politicians because they're doing it but what I'm saying they should now be observant of the damage they're doing to our value system
go na le pelegeng e ne buiwa ke se se retsa kgang e ne bidiwa self reliance ya no go na le pelegeng ye nngwe re bonang gompieno ya diphaphatha re latlhegetswe ha kae ke pelegeng ye re itseng re agileng university ka yone e ne re ikemela dinao ka go latlhegile ha kae le re ka baakanya jang potso ke yone
ya no e thata mo go maswe ke gakola gola bangwe ba ditsela tsa Africa borwa ke ha ba khela actually it was one of the celebrities in South Africa one of the journalists one of the pride in Botswana is how they built their university through motoka khomo wa bona I mean that is ipelegeng where people actually give in for something that's good for society these are things that we need to build on and emulate instead of today's culture what are you doing for me all the time not what are you doing for the country as your friend Kennedy used to
JFK,
say
so
it's really we've lost the hardworking the self-sustaining Botswana through programs that for me they went overboard and to be fair to the system these aspects have been studied globally so in terms of your welfare state how much do you give and it has been proven if you actually give people the money instead of doing things for them it is more effective than giving them freebies that's for our next podcast because
provided you hold them accountable
not necessarily it was an experiment there's an experiment they did in Canada where they did that for a particular district where instead of providing people I mean you'll have a percentage but by and large the economy and the motivation goes up no it's been proven that's a better model than actually some of the farmers some of the economists but give these people the cash you'll see better results people are not as bad as you think they are going to put the money in the right places for their own development some of them are going to even do some course surprisingly instead of where jalapeu ebe sa tlhoge ebe le gore we've all lost as a nation because madia tsene ka motlhoboloko
mongwe me gopolo e nna le wena re kileng ra ya mara ra bua ka yone gapetse ke ya gore re tsise bo maitsana pe ba tshwana le bo Professor Seligman batla ka megopolo e ba kileng ba idirisa mo mahatsing a mangwe e berekileng go bo Australia ba itse kwana nna le wena ne re dimala gore ra go nna re khotla gore mento a rona gore re leke go dira jalo maiteko a go dira jalo a tsamaga kae le gore ha ile gore ga a itlhalla ha ra batlang teng re tsa di hibile di kgato tsa gore re goroge gore batlang teng
hey thata ka gore and ta ke re gona le ha go henyang teng wala sa yente bogole yang nata ke a sokola ka go bona go bonana le ba direla puso ba ba tsang ditshwetso go thata
kopana le
it's very frustrating especially us in the private sector that believe that we have ideas we innovate we study models globally and there are things that we can share with them. I go ask neka le ka go kopana le mong o le gore ga ana leina, very senior in government with some ideas about how to do certain things in government innovatively. And ke ha one of the DPS about no. The senior person with no name doesn't want to see you because o tlare ka mo se go ntshwa dithandara mo gote o favorile. You know, I'm thanking that. So there's that reluctance, and I have to be fair. There are pockets of those that are, and half the time is those that you already know. I mean, there are ministers that are very accessible because I have an idea. I want to see what's happening here. Can we have a chat? Spare 15 minutes. They will spare the 15 minutes. But the vast majority are very difficult to access. So I have written letters, to even previous vice presidents about Professor Seligman, very keen to come here and influence our culture, our well-being and topic. He goes to UAE every time. He's always in Dubai, these guys. Hakere, some do happen. Earlier this year, we managed to bring one of the top innovators in the world, in the innovation space, from Silicon Valley, a gentleman called Salim Ismail. And we brought him through the private sector. We brought him through Botswana because we were doing a project where he was key as an influencer, as a global influencer in that space, innovation and technology. So that, for me, is one of those things that gives me great heart. We will influence in certain quarters. So that has worked, but that is outside a government premise. In this space, value system, there is a gentleman, he's a prominent professor from Michigan. He is the top scholar when it comes to cultural modernization and value system. He's part of this value survey, Adrian Global. Professor Ronald Engelhardt. So he's a person that I can contact. He can come and actually see how we're doing the mindset change exercise and see where we can get it right and share the models that the other countries, how they've gotten it right. So that's my summary. It's not easy. We have access to these people, but unfortunately, we don't most of the time get fertile ground to bring these people here and be able to share these experts.
Can you say a bit more on Ali Esman in terms of what he planted in us?
Mangane Salim. Wow.
Salim.
Salim Ismail. Oh, what a guy. He was the vice president at Yahoo for a while, and he was responsible for the innovation section. He was a founding executive of one of the most influential technology universities in the world called Singularity University in California, where they had partnered with NASA and another gentleman called Peter Diamandis, who's also a book writer and a big proponent of technology.
Also. Diamandis owns the university also.
Singularity. He was the executive director. Diamandis is the founder. With a gentleman called Ray Kurzweil, who's one of the global top technology futurists. This is a gentleman that can that predict the future in terms of technology, and half the time he gets it right. So they were the founders of the university in partnership with NASA. So we have a project with a local mining house where we are trying to shake the business model so that they leverage developing technologies, whether it's robotics, whether it's in energy, whether it's AI, whether it's sensors, whether it's all these new spaces.
That's where your son is involved.
Exactly, he's involved in those things to try and develop alternative revenues for Botswana. In this case, for this specific company. So so the company agreed, and we got him here in Botswana, and we actually had a presentation, a public section for about an hour before we started doing the work, which was internal work with the
so
mining
in fact
company.
there are some green shoots.
Oh, absolutely. We shouldn't be too harsh on ourselves. There are things that we're achieving at the individual level, influencing entrepreneurs in terms of how they see life, how they can succeed as entrepreneurs. We live in a world of abundance. There's a book that I recommend, the better angles of our nature, written by a gentleman called
The Better Angels
of Our Nature.
I've come across it, but I haven't read it.
He's
Stephen
Pinker. He's the guy. He talks about whole research about how the world has become a better place in terms of strife and violence. You know, if you look at the world from 50 years ago in terms of poverty, in terms of violence, since the Second World War, we haven't had any big war between warring big countries. We've had obviously pockets here and there. But otherwise, we live in the most peaceful time in history. Health-wise, I mean, in terms of poverty, all these things are
all
down.
The metrics,
all the metrics are heading down. So we're healthy. There's music. There's all these things. So this is where what we talked about is so relevant. But now we need to be in the right mindset to be able to leverage the abundance that's there in the world. I mean, I can talk about how energy from a solar, from a wind, from storage, how the prices are plummeting. Very soon we'll have abundance of free energy. And that free energy will catapult developing countries, because the big thing about industrialization is energy. And these are the things that why we need to be on the right mindset to be able to leverage the good things that are happening in technology. So, and also there's a booster for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur who knows what because all these technologies that are getting demonetized. In other words, the value and the cost are coming down. They are becoming democratized. In other words, they're available for everybody. There are now almost 6 billion people on the net. You have available resources globally to solve your problem. That is why
the numbers have gotten there.
They've gotten up. So they are going up and they are growing every year in terms. So we have exponential growth in many aspects of technology, and all the young people ourselves got to say this is a good space. Now we've got to be able to leverage that good space by being in the right mindset. That's right. This is where the mind. That's why
it really comes together.
That's where it comes together, because if you're in the wrong mindset, if all you want to be is to be greedy, if you all want to do is to harm the neighbor, or concerned about your status, you're not able to leverage. So we need entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs that can, and also we need very modern political leadership that can take our country to the next level, just like Dubai, just like Singapore, those countries where lifespan is very high. I mean, Singapore now, it's got the best health span for people on earth compared to any other country.
Really?
Health span means getting old, but with quality of health. So what more would you need?
But if you consider what they were like us when they started.
I mean, they compare the economy in 1963 to Ghana, where the economy was worse than. So all is to do is the leadership. Is the leadership. And like Dubai, all these guys. I mean, the chairman of NASA has been to Dubai. Engelhardt, the guy on the values,
that you
he's been to
mentioned,
Dubai talking to public service. I've tried to get Martin Seligman to come and talk to a public service, because sometimes when you are a local, there are some disadvantages where people say, so people have a way. So sometimes you need to bring your coalition of experts thinking that, like we did with, because I've been talking about technology, exponential technologies that are happening. But up until I brought
an expert from outside,
Salim, I mean, there were people in the hall that said, this is real.
And
for this company,
it gives you validation.
It gives validation. And the company also says, because he gave examples of companies that grew 10 times, 40 times by leveraging these technologies. He unpacked them and say, this mining company can do that. So it was a bit of validation there.
Now, I want us to position ourselves in the context of SADC. If we can, as we get to the close of our conversation. We have Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, an area. We are looking at 2063. Let's bring it all together. What we do nationally and intercontinentally to bring it all together, so that this doesn't just become a national project, it becomes a regional and continental project.
I think, look, for now, as Botswana, I'll keep it as a national project, because we need to we need to fly as a country. I think Botswana is one of those countries that are almost disappointed in the world in terms of our performance, because we've got a lot of things in place. You know, we've got a good balance sheet with the diamonds. We are almost in education system. We invest quite a lot in education. Recently, it's a bit wobbly, but we have a lot of educated young people. We've got, you know, these are good people. I mean, I'll give you an example of Salim, who came. We spent a week with him here. We even went to the Delta with him. And I mean, he said, this is coming from him, someone who's traveled the world and seen presidents and CEOs across the globe. He said, Oabona, this is one of the most civilized countries I've ever visited.
Wow.
In terms of the culture of the people. As an example, you are just giving an example. Well, maybe I shouldn't give that example because it might have security stuff. But you are saying in terms of how we live almost freely without fear of security. And although now we feel out since 2008 we've been claimed, or we can't even talk without
like
the big brother. It used to be. But we need to hold jealous to those values. So I mean, he was really, really impressed. And these are the things that the world wants Botswana. We got to open up the economy, Mogobe, to talent outside, because we've got the right country. This airport needs to get busy with entrepreneurs coming. Well, I'm working on one of the projects, which is to try to open up Botswana from a startup entrepreneurship. I think that would be dear to you, but opening up to the globe, to entrepreneurs to come to Botswana and set up here, which is a very, very powerful thing in terms of having a diversity of entrepreneurs, which I think will spiral the economy. So we've got to open the economy. And as you rightly said, Africa has got the biggest challenges. Now, for entrepreneurs, the biggest challenges, the grand challenges are the biggest opportunities.
Yes, they are.
So for me, it's exciting in terms of entrepreneurs, if we can just break down these borders, cooperate more. So the free trade agreement is a huge opportunity if we can really collapse these trade barriers and let people operate freely across the I mean, traveling in Africa is a nightmare. It's expensive.
You need visas everywhere.
Visas, all these things. I mean, one of the things that I told my friends that one of the good things that Ramesses has done is this initiative of using Omang for cross-border with the Namibians. Yeah, but I mean, it's a progressive. It's a very progressive thing to do, because for me, we are, I mean, like you said, Namibia, in terms of values, in terms of crime, we are by and large, obviously you got to look at the implications. We are quite balanced. So why don't we, with the right security, just make it easy to trade and flow? All of a sudden, instead of having 2 million people, we have 4 or 5 million people.
As a market.
Yeah, as a market. So I don't know why we are so, partly obviously because of the value system, because we are just new democracies, sovereignty, what. I mean, these lines were drawn by the colonialists and all that,
arbitrarily.
Yeah, so we got to take charge and say, as leaders, can we revisit these borders? Can we make our life easier for our people? I mean, this thing, to visit your cousin that side, you have to travel 100 kilometers to your border and come back to him. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But I mean, that's how it is. But these are things that politicians have to say, how do we make life easier for our people? So I totally agree with that. I think it's a huge opportunity for Botswana. But in terms of mindset change and values for the rest of Africa, I think the countries need to embark. Like I told you, a lot of the African countries don't appear in that value survey. Half the time, Professor Ingle Harinare, half the time the data is not there in Africa.
So they don't bother.
So it's difficult. No, some of them they actually take people to go and try and produce data. So that's why we need to modernize, have data, because if you can't measure, you can't improve. That's just how the saying goes. So it's a super good initiative by AU, and I think as Botswana we can really leverage on that.
Do you believe that we are likely to improve our position in the happiness index? Because it's one area where we have done very poorly, and it was your belief how things don't look promising at all. But I'm just wondering, are we still in the bottom of the bottom? And are there any signs that we'll get out of that?
I'm afraid I haven't seen encouraging signs. Primarily, that's why I'm very excited about the mindset change exercise if it's done correctly, because I think it can influence those. If you remember the variables of the UN happiness report that they look at,
Yes.
they look at things like freedom. How free are people to realize, their purpose in life? Free to do things that you want, without being strangled.
Yes.
Strangled in brackets. How generous is society? Social support. When you are in trouble, how easy it is to get support from other people, your family, your what, which is a very critical thing in your happiness, to get support. Those things are breaking up in Botswana. I don't see signs of them coming back together. We're talking about crime and greediness, so that affects freedom. If we get increased crime, it means people are less free. I gave you an example in Norway, where 60% of people trust other people. And countries like Botswana,
apparently leave your wallet in the street.
And then you chance of you finding it. So you can see it's an uphill. Now, when you have inequality, they do that because they don't need the money, because the system looks after them. Right? So now in Botswana, you are trying to find money for a taxi, and then a woman asks, "Hey, why what?" So it's because of the inequality and the poverty levels that we still have that we need to address. Okay. So those are some of the variables. Life expectancy in Botswana, health-wise. I don't know if you're aware that last year I got the UN report that life expectancy dropped to 61. So the quality of
from
health
67.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know where it was 65 or something.
It
was going up after the HIV/AIDS, and it was going up. Now it's back. It's going back down. So that's extremely concerning, and that shows what a in the wrong direction. The happiness report of the last 2 years, we're still in that top 10 wrong side of the quartile. So there's a lot of work that's got to be done. And I think a project like this, your mindset change, where we look at the values, we've got to look at the heritage of Botswana from a value system point of view, see what if we are a religious society, if we are a secular society, if we are a society that's in self-expression, whether there's still a lot of survival people, some other values in the system. So all those we got to identify as it's been done globally in many countries, and see how can we now start working towards a happier. So I'm afraid I don't have good news for you in terms of.
If you could. Supposing you could, in a world where wishes were horses, sit down Rasebetela the Ramasisi Lanzahate to say, guys, for this thing to work, this is what I propose we do. Just in a nutshell, what would you urge the two of them to be focusing on now?
Well, I think the first thing for the project, because look, the messages that you send, like is going to be premised on where we are now. Any exercise starts with where are you right now and where do you come from. So the first thing is, have we done a values assessment of Botswana?
So you'd ask them to focus on that.
Focus
first.
on that. And
it wouldn't take long to
so
do
that
that.
project and now when you assess, you find the good things, because when you send a message like you're in a campaign, you got to reinforce the good things. Like there are good things there are certain values that we have to hold jealous to and not contaminate. And so those need to be identified. And that can only be identified by doing the assessment, Botswana, and where are we right now? And the methodologies are there. The methodologies and the instruments are there. Like I said, the World Values Survey has got the methodology. All these things it's are survivalist values, it's our self-expression values, it's our traditional religious values, it's our secularization values. All those have been defined. They're there. It's there. So it's just a matter of mapping Botswana Hakai. And if we want a happier Botswana, as you said, that people are living well and they were almost getting to the Scandinavian happiness levels, now we can say what we need to do to get there. And that's
so
for me.
The focus is be on the deep dive research.
The deep dive. I really think if we do it blindly.
It would not take long?
I mean, these things, I don't think so. Consulting assignments can take a few months. But like you said, this exercise has been ongoing for what, 18 months?
18 months
or
since
more,
the speech,
or so.
yeah.
So it's a matter of doing the right things. And I'd rather, as we say in consulting, rather stop and do the right thing than carry on with the wrong thing.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they are all holota.
Yeah. And in terms of, as an entrepreneur, the Ministry of Entrepreneurship themselves, have you become aware of any specific things that they are doing or the impact they're having on this issue of mindset change? Because even that ministry came out of that speech, if you recall.
What I agree is that, and I think you've seen the thread in my talk, where entrepreneurs make things happen.
Yeah.
And I really like the real entrepreneurs in Botswana to stand up.
Yeah.
Not the tenderpreneurs and the opportunistic type people. The real people that I think I've defined entrepreneurship in this session before, in terms of people that identify probably the opportunities are in the problems. And money comes later. You believe in solving the problem and the money follows. Those are real entrepreneurs. So for me, to let them stand up and have a ministry that try to cultivate them, it's a super good thing to do. But in terms of what the ministry is doing, what plans to do, I don't know. The only thing that I can tell you is that in trying to assist, and I've met with the minister, I've proposed an idea around growing the startup Botswana ecosystem in terms of how to facilitate the growth of startups and entrepreneurs in Botswana, but leveraging the global ecosystem of entrepreneurship by attracting them to Botswana.
Yes.
So that's a mindset change, because we've got to be open to people coming from India innovation space, South Korea innovation space, coming here, experimenting, gelling with our people, and infusing into our society. We've got to be foreigner friendly, which is something that as Botswana we are seen not to have been very foreigner friendly. So these are things that are progressive, but it depends where the values of the country are to be able to be tolerant of people coming from outside. So that's my space where I'm trying to influence as an entrepreneur and as a consultant.
Wow, that's very commendable. Do you have a question for me, sir, as we conclude our conversation?
that time of the talk.
Yeah.
And I think you've asked me questions around the mindset change, but I haven't really hit you with the same question about it. What are your very humble and candid thoughts about the mindset change project?
Yeah.
Whether you actually believe in it, and if you believe in it, why?
Yeah. No, I think the mere fact that the problem has been identified means that the prospects of it being solved exist. So I sometimes go back to H.E.'s speech, and I think as a speech, as a political speech, it's a work of art. It's brilliant. So the challenge now is having that cascade into the real world. There's a sense in which the private sector and entrepreneurs are shunned by the powers that be. I would like to see them making us part of that project. I would like, for instance, to see entrepreneurs being brought along in some of these visits, BITC playing a more prominent role in terms of actually involving local entrepreneurs as well. I don't think they are doing enough of that. But in terms of what is being done, going to Kota meetings, raising awareness, talking about it, to me that is the right thing. But I would tend to agree with you that we need to go back to the drawing board in terms of a deeper diagnosis. So I love the project, I endorse the project, and I'm enthusiastic about the project. And if the Minister of Entrepreneurship, Boyce Betala, even H.E. himself is watching this, I would say use us. Use some of us in the private sector. Involve us. We're ready to be used, and we're ready to infuse some of our ideas and suggestions. So subject to the need for them to involve the private sector more. I noticed that Business Botswana has gone very, very quiet. But Business Botswana would have been an ideal platform to represent us and be part of this mindset change. So I hope I've answered your question.
I don't know if you answered.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
think you are part of the enthusiastic brigade.
Yes.
So that's really great. No, otherwise that's the only question that I just wanted
Thank you
to
so
get
much.
to hear.
Leave the viewer with something uplifting. Say one last message as we wrap up. That's your camera there.
Okay, no, Moretsi, I think senka se buang hela ke gore ko phelelong o tshwantse gore mongwe le mongwe a tseye boikarabelo. Ke ne ke tlhola ke bua ke lagano gore well-being of our people, the happiness levels, is an inside job. So you have to look at your own life and see within the context of the project A Mindset Change, what can you do within your space, your family, your community to make it a better and thriving place. I'm very jealous that there are countries that are thriving in the world, really thriving. And in the statistics, a lot of Botswana are not thriving. And actually, according to the reports, we are not a very happy lot. And we need to work on that. And let's start at individual level. But if you can, to influence the system in terms of our political leadership, our economic leadership, let's see what we can do. Let's collaborate, come together. Harela hayana kana le remo go biana. Re ntse ra tshubira. Re leka go bona gore re ka irang re le babedi. Me ya ka re itse gore o tshwantse gore morto a ise ga o ele ke gona gore re tshwara re le mmogo re bona gore ka dira yang. Ke a leboga.
Thank you very much. Share them with all your contacts. Leave them. Where can they find you? Where can they get your services?
In terms of contact, I can be contacted at inolit at inolit we can be contacted at inolit@inolitafrica.com, or our phone number is 3090-102. That's our contact number. So if you want to contact us, please feel free to contact us at the office. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me again. It was a pleasure.
No, next year I'm bringing you back. Cool.